Hello, welcome to today's edition of Pegasus Test. On today's edition, we're covering my thermal run of Moons Out 2025. Now, at this year's match, we did something innovative for the ROs. We did the RO match way ahead of the main match once we had the match all set out. So we did the first half in January, the second half in February. This stage we did in January. I did it using my ATN Thor thermal, which is basically a PVS-4 in thermal equivalence. And what you're seeing through the thermal drone here is pretty much what I was seeing through the sight. Now, I've just taken a shot with the cannon at the target, missed it. But to go back to that, the targets that you see there, that's about what I was seeing. As you can see, they're blending in. I'll go ahead and put arrows in here pointing out each of the targets. It was very tough. We had snow on the ground. It was in the low 20s temperature-wise Fahrenheit scale, and everything was blending in really tough. I mean, this was not an easy engagement without the targets being heated. So my target acquisition was much more slower, and also the reason I'm using the drone video here is the cold was attacking the battery so hard that if I activated the recording function in thermal, it would just shut it off. So just to even keep the thermal working, I had to not record through the optic, which I wish I could have done because I think it would have given you a much better view of what was going on here. Now on this stage, you had to open up the footlocker, read the instructions that were stapled to the lid, which is another limitation of thermal. I couldn't do that. I had to also have a nod, read those instructions, and then make the engagement per the written instructions in the box. Once I completed a run-through, I moved to the second box, read those instructions, complete the engagement as per those instructions, and then the stage is over. So I know everybody thinks thermal is the be-all, end-all, but it's really not. There are limitations to it. Now, the great thing about thermal technology is it is advancing super quickly, much faster than analog night vision technology or probably even digital night vision technology is advancing. This thermal unit I'm using is from 2016, and like I said, that's the equivalent of a PVS-4. It's basically Gen 2 night vision, roughly equivalent. I was doing the match with that just to see what could be done with thermal. As I said here, in this stage, stage 1, Rambo's Reading Rainbow, you had to read the instructions that were posted inside the lockers and then carry them out. There's no way to do it with thermal. There wasn't enough light to do it with the naked eye. You can't use any illumination other than if you were using nods, you could use the map reading light on it. That was the only illumination you were allowed if you had that. So you had to use a nod just to read. So you have to have nods with your thermals. They are not mutually exclusive. This position was done from the kneeling, whereas the first position was done from the standing. And as you can see, I'm just really struggling. I don't particularly do well against spinners, although to be fair, on this stage, there was no requirement to spin the spinners. You just had to get hits on the designated either upper, lower, or both plates as designated by the description in the box. The par times here at the match were 240 seconds. We did the RO match here in the same format as the main match, so we were make sure we were experiencing it as ROs the same way the competitor would be. Normally the RO match is done the night before and we cram all 10 stages in one night, whereas the competitor has 2 nights to get 10 stages in. This made for a better experience for the ROs and also a much better test of the match to make sure we knew what we could and could not do. Unfortunately, I will par out on this stage, but it was only making my last hit and then getting the bonus shot with the cannon at the far right target, which I'll point out here.
Oh, this is going to be awful.
All right. Do you understand the course of fire?
Unfortunately.
Shoot it! Are you ready?
Unfortunately.
Stand high!
All right, we are moving on to stage 2, which was you were in a Humvee, you had targets you had to engage from the rear and to each side. In this one, I'm using a clip-on thermal. The photography here is being done through a PVS 14. And while the clip-on thermal was way more advanced than the ATN Thor that I was using on stage 1, it still really didn't make a difference. And you're really going to see the different lack of what thermal can do here in just a second. As we come up on this set of targets, the only thing I'm seeing through thermal is a post. Unfortunately, the post is not what the target is attached to. So I am shooting at the heat source thinking, oh yeah, I'm just pelting it. And like, no, when you see here in the regular night vision video, I was not. So thermal just comes with a set of limitations. If you have no heat source, you have no aiming system. And now we are on to stage 3, the Mogadishu Mile. In this stage, you ran alongside a vehicle. You don't see the vehicle in this run through. This is during our testing. But you simulate escorting the vehicles out of Mogadishu after recovery of Task Force Ranger. And you can see here, you have to fire on the move. I'm having to adjust the thermal to be able to see the target. And I could barely see those targets through the thermal. I could actually see them better with my naked eye. If you'll notice, I do not have my nod down. I'm depending on my thermal here and my naked eye. Luckily, when we did this in January, this stage was covered in snow. So with the full moon, we had pretty good illumination and probably about the best conditions for night vision you could ask for. And this is a stage that thermal actually did one of its best performances on. I was able to see the targets for the most part. There's 6 poppers here. They are off screen to the right. However, I did knock 4 of them down. I wasted a certain amount of rounds on the others, and when the hits weren't coming, I just left it. And here I make a dash towards the VTAC barricade. Now, from the VTAC, you had 2 targets downrange. You had to engage them from the 2 square ports and 1 shelf on the VTAC. For a total of 12 hits, 4 per hole, and you had to do that in a 1-2-1-2 pattern. I was able to see the targets. They were somewhat visible. Again, they're not coming up here in the drone's thermal, but I could see them, and basically I found them by finding the heat off the posts that were holding up the targets. And then I would go up and say, okay, the target should be up there. I would fire a shot, and I'd be rewarded with the RO telling me that I had made a hit. Again, having to adjust focus and things like that along the way. This was at the very limits of what the thermal could engage. Since this is the stage that we did in January, I am using the ATN Thor and not the clip-on that you saw in stage 2. Compared to some of the other shooters who were shooting regular forms of night vision, both passive and active, thermal was just way slower. The targets were indistinct. The ground torn up by the misses created to the heat signature and created more of a smudge that you notice, like, center of the smudge or a certain part of the smudge, I get the result I want, versus the a clear defined target. Finding a way to heat multiple thermal targets has been our bane in this match, and it's a thing that we are trying to solve for future matches. From here through the night vision, if you look in the upper left-hand corner at about the 1030 position, you just saw a hit right there on the target. That's how visible it was to nods, but like from thermal, I did not have an image that clear.
Shooter, do you understand?
Okay, on this stage, we are doing stage 4
Deadman
home
ready.
invasion.
Shooter, are you
Mr.
ready?
Pang is our stand-in here.
Stand
Due to the
by.
tight confines of the Hesco house, for safety reasons, we didn't follow him with a camera after he treated his casualty
Oh,
buddy
you
here.
motherfucker! What did you do?
Refuge Medical was a great help here. They provided
screaming.
us this
We're fine.
wound packing simulator that we could use with our
Right on your neck.
dummy roommate who blew himself up with the Claymore on the Roomba.
Yeah.
So hence, Mr. Pang is not exactly showing the best bedside manner here, as he has little sympathy for all the problems his roommate has just caused him.
That should be all in there.
What you had to do here was properly pack the actual bleeding wound, then hold pressure for 30 seconds. Once given the clearance from the RO who verified that you did this to standard, you did get a little bonus for this, and then you went and retrieved rifle and then cleared the house.
Go.
Fuck you.
Now these were stage rifles. You had one magazine with 28 rounds of frangible ammo in it, and the magazine was marked with the match logo, and you actually got to keep it. Now switching over to our thermal drone here for safety's sake for filming. At various places throughout the house, you had all kinds of evil home invaders that looked a lot like 66% steel targets that you engaged with your one rifle, with your one magazine of frangible ammo. So you have a required number of hits and 28 rounds to get it done. And some of the targets are actually located outside the house here. Okay, what you see here is a trench in a snow-covered forest. Now use your mind. Imagine you're at a Special Forces A-Team camp in the Central Highlands of Vietnam. Ignore the snow. So I've just dropped a mortar round down onto the enemy VC attacking my camp, and using my thermal scope that somehow has transported itself back to 1967. Let's ignore that for a second. And I am gauging the communist hordes attacking my camp. Now the truth is I'm back to using the Thor ATN thermal scope, and in these cold temperatures, the trees, the targets, just about everything blends together, and it looks like I'm through that scope looking into a field of pixels. I can't tell tree trunks from targets, and it's really on the struggle bus here. And it's a pretty frustrating experience because I can look out, I can sort of kind of pick up maybe a shadow every now and then where the target should be with my naked eye, but the truth is I'm not really seeing anything through the scope. Now the ROs standing around observing, they're trying their best to talk me on, and they're telling me when I'm missing. I'm not missing by much. So I'm able to get a little bit of data out of that, but yeah, the thermal just really let me down here. Like I said, we are working on ways to find a way to heat the targets where they look like targets, that the that the targets are replicatable, and we can do it on a large scale at an affordable level where we don't have to jack the rates up just for thermal division. I did manage to get a few hits there, but now I'm working my way back through, and just before I par out, the drone here runs out of battery, but you're not really missing anything.
As much as I'm gonna be. Stand by!
Now we move on to stage 6, bound forward. In this stage, you have 6 firing positions you shoot from. At the one target, you can see downrange there, and you have to get 3 hits. Since there's only one target, they can be triple taps, no problem. 1, 2, 3, fast as you can hit. The target does have a flasher. You'll notice in this engagement, it does not flash, because once again, thermal is failing me. The target is the same. The steel is cooled to the same temperature as the snow behind it, and I am literally looking over the scope going, oh, I can see the target. Literally, I can almost see it with my naked eye, and then I would go with the thermal and just aim where I thought I should be. Now, these other gunshots you're hearing, that's my battle buddy giving me cover fire. Yeah, so you have an NPC running alongside with you, firing off blanks, acting like you're bounding forward, doing a fire and maneuver drill. Now, when I get here to position 2, the results are the same. I am not seeing that target against the snow background. Give it a few more shots just for the record, and then I decide to move on out. I admit I'm not running full tilt boogie here across our slippery snow that has covering up all kinds of branches and twigs to slip under. Now in this particular shot here, you don't see the target even with the PVS4 because it's a very specific angle you have to get at position 3 here to be able to see the target. And again, no joy, so all I do is rack up 3 more 60-second penalties. Now dashing over here to position 4, again under cover fire. Using the tree as a brace from the shooting box. Go ahead and aim in at the target, which again is pretty well, you have to have, from the firing position there, you have to have just the right position to get it. It is very easy to see here in the nod. But the thermal just wasn't picking it up. And from that position, it blended into the tree trunk perfectly. Moving out to position 5 here, life gets a little bit better. And finally, the target lights up. Getting hits, the thermal was finally able to differentiate it from the background. Dashing to final position 6 here. Go ahead and get those final hits. Didn't time out, but I did collect 12 penalties.
Range is hot!
All right, moving on to stage 7, the double wide of death revisited. And on this one, you were raiding a meth lab to rescue a hostage. You toss in a stun grenade.
Shooter, are you ready?
Ready.
Stand by.
If you remember to pull the pin properly, and if it goes off. Now, you'll notice that my nod was flipped up. Of course, I'm shooting the clip-on thermal here, and you can see I'm almost point shooting. When we shot this stage in the February portion of the RO match, we had extraordinarily best night vision conditions possible. As you can see, lights are coming in through the tent liner and everything. The silhouettes are backlighted. I could see with the naked eye. So, in all honesty, I wasn't even using the thermal here. So, just straight up point shoot, and it worked. And grab our hostage, move out to evacuate, kill the last bad guy, and the stage is over. And now we're moving on to stage 8, the Bakhmut Night Assault. From the starting position, you dashed up to where the kettlebell was staged because it's not moons out if you're not moving a kettlebell. From the kneeling, you were required to get 2 shots on the target downrange. Now, pay attention. You see the target down there, and it's got like a smudge of torn up ground around it. Yeah, that's the snow got tore up from all the previous shooters on the RO match. In my thermal, that appeared all as one smudge. I could not see the target. All I knew is if I fired at about the 5 o'clock position, the RO would say I got a hit. So once I figured that out, and I could get some feedback with my naked eye on the hits, so that helped out. Then it was on to throwing the kettlebell and move out. And the secret to kettlebell stages, no matter what match you do them at, is throw the ball, don't look at it. It'll be wherever it'll be. Just grab your rifle and go. Again, the snow conditions here that January created absolutely great night vision conditions. However, for thermal, using that Thor ATN, everything was almost a uniform temperature. When I was looking down the scope, it wasn't differentiating much. Like I said, the turned up ground was actually giving off more heat than the target itself. And as you can see, we have a debris field you get through here, and as you watch it goes through, it actually matters. You're going to see points here where, like, the kettlebell gets stuck in an obstacle, which is a pallet. You're going to see it hit one of the boards and not roll. Even though under it is hard-packed gravel, which usually helps your kettlebell throws, with the snow on the ground and the debris, it just, where the kettlebell lands, it's pretty much where it stays. Again, the shooters that were shooting active or passive were actually having an easier time than I was with thermal on this. But I do okay on the stage. I will par out, unfortunately, but not till the very end. So getting pretty good kettlebells, that's working for it, because as you can see, trying to get the shots there are just, I'm taking way too freaking long. And that was somebody else's magazine, not mine. Got a really good throw right there. Get the sling from being untangled because you don't want to shoot it off. Get the hits. Use the prop as a place to store the rifle. Get it over the final line. I threw it almost too far, as you see, because it really was a short throw. Because the one thing about Caserta drills, when you get to that last line, you never get over it. You always come up just short and have to do an extra throw. Also, I was out of rounds, so did a reload so I could get my 2 hits. And then I'm going to have to drop that magazine and take a high-value shot. So that's the second hit. As you see, out come the mag, retain, clear the rifle. Unfortunately missed it, so penalty there. Then retrieve the kettlebell, and I've got to dash all the way back to the start point and get 2 more shots. Unfortunately, the clock is going to get me before I get back there.
He doesn't even have his nod stand. He's going to do this blind.
Doing it
All right,
with thermal.
shooter, are
What
you
could
ready?
possibly go wrong?
Oh, no.
Stand by.
All right, moving on to Stage 9, Radio Freakout. In this stage, after you make your first engagement with the VTAC, all your further range commands come through a radio. So you have to listen for what's up and then go engage the targets. Now I'm going to throw some arrows up here shortly to show you where the targets are, because the one bright spot you see downrange you think might be a target. No, that's not. That's just a rock, believe it or not. Now I am rather proud of myself. Once I find the target, and I had to do that between a cross of looking through the thermal, not really seeing anything, flip down the nod, get an image, and then try to find what I saw through the thermal. Got a hit off the bat right away, though. The second target on the right was substantially more difficult to find through the thermal than the one on the left. As you can see here, flipping down the nod, trying to get an overlay,
Maybe you can find it by
to get the
smell.
rifle orientated.
Yeah. Thermal sucks when it's not warm-blooded.
Yep.
And just, trying to distinguish it. You can see way, way off there. Then moving back.
Yep. You were way to the left of it.
Yeah, just
first
trying
time
to
you
search
started
around and find them. It was really hard through that. And that clip-on thermal was a whole lot better than the ATN Thor. Now what I do is I tilt the rifle over. I've taken it out of my shoulder, but I've left the nod flipped down, and I'm kind of letting my eyes overlap. And it worked, a la Bindon style aiming. It was suboptimal, but it was helping me find the target somewhat. You'll see here some of the times when I'm taking a shot, you'll see the impact of the bullet, and I'm not missing the target by much. But and if I wasn't doing that kind of weird Bindon-esque type aiming, I wouldn't even be getting as close as I was getting, because the screen was pretty much washed out. Very little definition. But when you come to brutality, you don't come to give up. So fought my way through it. Again, gaining more lessons learned with thermal to be able to fight our way through this for future events. It is our goal at Moons Out to eventually have a thermal division and have targets that are such that they can blend in with the regular night vision, yet still be engageable under thermal, be engageable under regular standard analog nods. Oh, so close on that one.
About a half target low. Hit!
Shooter, move to left side of left horizontal barricade and get 4 hits in a 1-2-1-2 pattern.
And then once you get your radio call, you move over, and it's the same thing. 4 more hits in the 1-2-1-2 pattern. And when I could brace the
Are
rifle
you sure you don't want to have that command to read?
and be able to match up the nod with the thermal, I could get a hit.
Anyway, go
It
ahead.
just
Hit.
didn't come easy. But it does get me close. If that had been a real target coming at me, of course, if it was real and hot and warm, I would have nailed it. But he's very suppressed. He's very terrified. He feels the crack of the bullets going near him. And that's what I'm telling myself anyways.
All right, time.
All right, we are moving on to Stage 10, the assault on Camp A-107. That's right, you're throwing out the imperialist dogs and their puppet troops. Really what this has done is this is Stage 5 from the other side. Instead of being the defending force, you are now the attacking force. And you notice how you can see all 8 targets out there really pretty easy. They are right out there, pretty easy to see. We had people with regular analog nods, like the one the camera that's filming, shoot this sub 90 seconds. So yeah, it's a pretty good, easy engagement from that respect. But with the thermal, nope, I had a sea of white. As you can see, I'm just scanning there, trying to find it. And spoiler alert, this is not going to go well because this is engagement 1. Then you run to the other side of the wire and you make an engagement on 2, which is all 8 targets from position 2 run back to position 1 for a 3rd engagement and finally end up back at position 2 for a 4th engagement. A total of 32 hits. And I managed to get 1. Because the thermal just was not seeing anything. I tried looking through it. I tried bin and aiming. I tried everything I could, and I only managed 1 hit and parred out. To say that it was a frustrating experience, putting it mildly, I think taking 31 penalties on a stage is a new record for me. Not the one I want to set, but one that I in fact did. And there's my first and only hit. And just going after it. And your hits are not that far away. You're engaging from about 40 to 75 yards. So well within the capabilities of passive aiming, which you had, as you can tell from the video, absolutely perfect night vision conditions for that. And obviously great conditions for laser aiming as well. And this just goes into the pitfalls of thermal. The steel will eventually cool with the temperatures, especially in the wintertime. We were shooting this particular stage in February. The match itself is held in March. All cool temperature times in West Virginia. And when that steel cools to be the ambient temperature of the surrounding environment, it's invisible. Without a heat source, thermal is a non-aiming option, unfortunately. However, shooting the match under thermal was a unique experience. It has been done before. Ian has done it at previous Moons Out events, and he's had interesting results. His has been an ultra-modern thermal that's got the color overlays, it costs thousands of dollars, high-end as you can get. And he had slightly better results, but to be fair, he struggled on certain stages, and in another run in the same match, he outshot the thermal using conventional night vision and a high point carbine. So even the highest end thermal, when you don't have differentiation, it can narrow the gap, but it still can't make up for it. And it just goes to prove that thermal is not the be-all end-all that everybody makes it out to be. We hope you found this coverage of my thermal run of Moons Out 25 helpful and informative. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and tune in for future match content.